have my friend Jesse here. He is on top of everything when it comes to social media. He's the host and producer of Social Media News Live, and he's involved in live selling and other live video shows as well. He also produces a number of shows. He's frankly very, very busy when you think through all the different things that he does. So Jeff, I'll let people hear directly from you of, where do you spend your time these days online? Because it feels like you're everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. So I always say like the jack of all trades, master of none, but then somebody said, well, the rest of that but it's better than just being a master of one. So I said, okay, I'll use that. So that's what I'm going to do.
Nice.
Yeah. So doing a lot of podcast editing. That's where we hung out, last time over at Podfest. And yeah, I produce Guy Kawasaki's Remarkable People podcast, which keeps me pretty busy. We got some really cool episodes coming up there. But also do my live show every Friday at 10 a.m. Central, Social Media News Live, and that's also a podcast. And then, consulting work, all the stuff, and also doing a lot of live selling. We were talking about this before the show, is I'm an Amazon influencer and, do shoppable videos as well as go live on Amazon Live, which is really cool. And it's just like the Wild West. There's always new crazy stuff happening in the world of live selling.
That's awesome. That's cool. Yeah, we met at we've met prior to this, but we really hung out a lot at Podfest here this past year. And Amazon Live was a huge focus there. So, it's been really fun to watch people like you and some of the others that have really dove, headfirst into that and making some great waves. And like you're saying, it is really the Wild West. It's kind of this untapped, untapped platform. So that's really, really fun to kind of learn and watch from you guys. But, you obviously, between all these different shows that you're doing for others and for yourself, and you've done a lot over the years, you are like truly a content creator. So, we've been talking a little bit about, how do you leverage all of the stuff that you've made? And I know you had some insights about and opinions about all of us content creators out there.
I got some opinions. Yeah. So my thing is I think as content creators, I mean, seriously, creating content is hard. I mean, it's hard to create good content because there's so much stuff out there, and you want to stand out in the feed and you want to stop the scroll and all that stuff. So how do you do that? And because there's, it's so hard to create good content, I really think that, and I see a lot of content creators creating content and they're moving on really fast to the next thing. And I'm like, wait, wait, not everybody saw that. That was good stuff. And I really think we need to take a breath and stop and squeeze every last drop of juice out of that content we create. I do it myself. We move on to the next thing because we got another blog post or we got another live video show we got to do. But taking the time to really strategize, and I know you're big in strategy, Valerie, that how we can take that content and not just like, okay, I posted a blog post. How can I repurpose that into all these different places where other people who may be on a different platform or may have missed it the first time, how they can see it and we can get in front of more people and not have to reinvent the wheel every single time we create a piece of content?
Yeah. Are there any specific things that you do, like with your own show or your own content that, I mean, obviously we're not always perfect every single piece, we're not always going to squeeze every little last drop out of something, but are there some kind of standard things that you always try to do, after you have a live show or, you put forth some sort of written piece or whatever? What are your go-tos when you're looking at repurposing things?
So this is one of the topics I like to speak about actually at like conferences or speaking events or paid speaking gigs or whatever is I call it the 3 R's of repurposing, because that's what we're doing. We're taking content we've already done and repurpose it. And the 3 R's are, is it relevant? Is it, can you refresh it? And how can you make it more remarkable? So the first one, is it relevant? So like I started out on Pinterest. That's kind of how I cut my teeth in the whole social media space, stood out there a little bit. And that's when I started growing the beard, actually, because I thought, oh, if it doesn't work, I can shave it off. And it said it worked. So I kept it. So
now you're stuck with it.
I'm stuck. I can't go anywhere.
I don't know if I'd recognize you if you shaved it off and went to a conference. That'd be a fun experiment.
People find pictures of me like some old like discus kind of things and without a beard, and it freaks them out. But anyway, so when I started on Pinterest, I mean, Google Plus, that's where I was at. Google Plus was great. That's where I had all the connections. I had all this networking that was going on. That's where I was going live. And I had a
Yeah.
lot of posts about Pinterest. Well, that's not relevant anymore, right? So you need to make sure it's relevant. If you have like an article about a flip phone, probably not relevant anymore. So you want
Right.
to make sure that your content you're repurposing is relevant. The second part, can it be refreshed? So here's an example, and I spoke at Disney a couple last month, and one of the things I talked about is when we had our honeymoon in Disney, and one of the rides there was called Aliens Encounter. It was made by George Lucas, and it scared the bejesus out of me, and I screamed like a girl. I love that ride. It was so much fun. Well, it's gone now. They've replaced it with Lilo Stitch. So if you were a Disney blogger and you created that, that's probably not relevant anymore, but you don't have to throw that content away. You could actually take that and write about the history of Disney or how this ride compares to this ride. And you don't have to throw it away. It needs to be refreshed. And so that's the second part of repurposing. Like, how can I refresh the content I already have? There's usually not much that you can't refresh. There may be something like the flip phone or something like that, some tech things that are MySpace and whatever, or Google Plus that just can't use anymore. But a lot of the stuff we could probably tweak a little bit and refresh it and put it out there again, and maybe find a new audience. And the last one is, how do you make it more remarkable? So we talked about always wanting to stand out in the feed. And one of the things, what you really need to do is start looking at your own behavior. Is when you're flipping through and scrolling through TikTok or YouTube or whatever, what makes you stop? Take a mental note of what that is. Why did you stop and do that? Take a note, make a note about it. And maybe you could kind of move your content in that direction. You never want to copy, but how can you make it remarkable? Because something was remarkable about that content that made you stop. And so you want that kind of remarkability in the content that you create. So how can you make it more remarkable?
Wow. Love it. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that a lot of people don't do is they don't take a mental note of what is working for me. I think maybe, and I even said this to my husband last weekend. I'm like, am I the average consumer? He was like, because he was talking about how he finally pulled the trigger on a Black Friday deal for something that he'd been advertised to for months on social media. And he was like, it's really just a good lesson in how you can't just pop up ads and assume that people are going to instantly take action. They're going to be, thinking about it and mulling it over, and they want to see you pop up a few times to figure out, like, are you legit? And I was like, well, are we the average consumer? Like, does everyone else think the way I do? And the fact that I'm like, even, questioning that, tells me that, probably most people are out there thinking like, oh, well, I'm different than everybody else, but I mean, if we just take a quick look at like, well, what's working for me, what's making me stop and pause, what is it about that post or the image on it or the video in it that really is catching my attention, make me drawn to it? That can be super powerful to just look back, take a moment, take the pause.
And, you mentioned, your husband saw that and finally bought from it after seeing it a bunch of times. What it used to be, what was it, like 6, you had to have 6 touch points. Well, now I think it's like 30 or 60. You have to have a lot more touch points to your leads or your potential customers than you ever had before. And that's what I like about repurposing, is it allows me, in not a spammy way, get out there in front of more people. The other thing that it lists your family like you did with your husband. I have my daughter, she'll, because I'm doing a lot of Amazon stuff, and I'm like, I don't spend a lot of time on TikTok, but that's where a lot of these Amazon sellers are coming from and pushing items, and things are selling out because of TikTok. So my daughter is actually saying, hey, I saw this, Dad, and sending it to me, because so use your family members as your, like,
to crowdsource
to crowdsource stuff and find out, because you're right. Like I know tech. I mean, I know live streaming. I know all this stuff. I'm not the average person who's struggling to learn tech or what kind of camera to buy. So I have other people that I ask, like, what are you looking for? Or how are you, what are you struggling with? That's where your potential customer is. And also, don't always think that everybody knows what you know. My wife is always telling me, like, nobody knows how to do that. I'm like, everybody knows. And she's like, no, they don't. Shut up. So you gotta, you know more than you think you do. And so remember that when you feel like everybody's heard this before, they probably haven't.
Right. Well, yeah, and that's a great point because a lot of times with the clients that I'm working with, a lot of times they're like, well, we already talked about this on social media. Why are we talking about it again? And I said, well, there's this whole thing called an algorithm.
Right. Exactly.
And not everyone that, we post it the one time, it's not like it's going out to every single person.
Yeah.
Not everyone was on social media or that platform that day.
Hmm.
The algorithm, maybe the post flopped, it didn't go to many people, or maybe it
Right.
did go to a lot of people, but it just still didn't reach those exact people.
Hmm.
So you really have to talk about your main message over and over and over again. It's been a few years since I've had this happen, but I would say probably for a solid 6 to 8 years of being in business, I had people reach out to me, wondering, hey, I think you might do this.
Right.
Is that something that you could help my sister-in-law with or whatever? Like, and
Hmm.
they wanted to give me a referral, but they weren't
Right.
100% sure of what I did. And these were people like folks I went to high school with,
Hmm.
or, people that I've known relatively. They're not people that I would go to conferences with or
Right.
knew from the local networking scene in the Denver area. So, you know, I wasn't actively promoting, hey, I do marketing, I do social media, content creation. I don't, I really try to balance that on my personal profiles a lot.
Hmm.
So I get why some people question it, but the fact that after, 6 to 8 years of being in business and talking about it from time to time, people still question, wait, is that
Right.
what you do?
Right. Yeah.
Because they live in their lane, right? So
Right.
they really need that repetition. It's so important.
Hmm. And yeah, and like repurposing content really does that because there's so many networks, and some people like will never go on Facebook, but they're on YouTube all the time. Some
Right.
people and vice versa. And so that's why I like repurposing and going to all those different platforms with the same piece of content. And I'm never, and I go crazy. Like I repurpose it to death. Like I beat that dead horse over and over and over. And I have never had anybody complain like, Jeff, you're posting this too much. Never. I have
Yeah.
the same amount of people because I always tag like people who are on my show and their little clips.
Yeah.
They always reshare it and they always, say something about it because I space it out in a way that isn't spammy and never had to complain about it at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a great point because a lot of times people are like, well, yeah, is this too much? Is this going to be
Hmm.
annoying to people? But yeah, you're right. I've never been upset by somebody tagging me on a legitimate piece of material.
Mm-mm.
You're tagging me on some spammy
Right.
MLM post. That's a different
Right. That's
story.
different. Right.
But if it
So
was a podcast episode or a live show that I was on,
yeah,
yeah,
that's
I
great.
love it when I'm featured multiple times by people. That makes me feel like my time was well spent, makes me feel like I was an appreciated guest.
Hmm.
There's so many different things that repurposing really can do. Um,
Yeah.
and
Let-
yeah, just a little bit of work up front.
So that's a perfect kind of segue into like what I do and how I do it for my show. So Social Media News Live,
Yeah.
it's all about social media and how it can small businesses and the news going on, and we teach how some certain people are using TikTok or vice versa for their business. And so what I do is if you look at my repurpose post, which is like all my Twitter feed, all my Facebook, all that, it's
Yeah.
mostly all that is that you barely see me on there because I'm always
Mm,
featuring my guests.
yeah.
So one, that helps you not feel so spammy, and two, it's highlighting them, and that lets me get better guests because they see in all my past history who I've had on and how I'm highlighting them. There's not
Right.
it's usually it's a question and that they're answering, and it shows their expertise and it highlights the guest and how smart they are, which also trickles down to me. That's how you become a thought leader. And
Right.
um and so I'm taking it from like my perspective, and you can use this for your business or whatever. But when you're doing that, being able to highlight other people and help have them tell the story that points back to you is really, really powerful because it doesn't seem like you're humble bragging. It doesn't seem like you're doing anything to spam the people who are looking at your content. It's helpful advice.
Yeah.
I had Kirk Nugent on, and he said something about like it's not live selling, it's live helping. And so when you
Hmm.
put the same way with your content, with the way you're putting your content out there, if you're helping solve a problem, like answering questions, like should I, as a small business, be on TikTok and have somebody answer that? people are, they're like, I don't know if I should or not. Well, this is answering that question. And so that kind of stuff is really, really helpful.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the way I do stuff, and that's why I love live video so much and love podcasting, is I do a live show that turns into a podcast. There's one piece of repurposed content right there. But then I upload that entire episode to Descript, which is just has changed the way I do all my business. It's amazing. So if you don't know what it is, you upload it, it creates a transcript. So it actually has a great AI transcript. It's probably the best one I've seen. I mean, it's not
Nice.
perfect, but it's like probably 98% perfect, and you can train it and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then you edit like you would a Word document, and it edits the video and the audio at the same time. So like if Valerie was on my show, which she is going to be, we would take that, and she would usually, I think that a good question and an answer to that question is around 2 minutes, which is
Yeah.
perfect, because that's the size of clip. You can only have 2 minutes 20 seconds on Twitter, and I put it everywhere, so that's a perfect little snippet. Well, because it has that transcript, it allows me to automatically have subtitles. And so I don't have to upload it to another service for subtitles or do anything like that.
Yeah.
It's already there. So I take that clip, export it out, and I can put it to all these different programs or just leave it as is. I can create an audiogram all inside of Descript. It is so powerful. I mean, we use it for Guy Kawasaki's entire show. That's what we do it in. We do sweeten it a little bit in Audition at the end, but that's how we edit everything. And it's just super, super powerful. So if you haven't tried it, you need to look at it, because there's even a thing now where I read like 2 chapters of I think Wizard of Oz or something, and now my voice is in there. And so if I screw up on saying, if I said Betty instead of Valerie, I could go in there and type in Valerie, and it would say it in my voice. So
wow.
it's freaky scary.
Yeah, that is a little freaky.
But it's really helpful when you're trying to edit quickly.
Yeah. Wow.
So, yeah.
That's great.
And you can export up, just the audio, you can do the video. And so it is super, super powerful.
Yeah. Now, as far as like getting it distributed, do you have any tools that you use that help you like stay organized with like, how do I manage getting all of this out on all these different platforms?
Right. So what I use is I use Agora Pulse, and what I do is I take those clips, and
another Agora Pulse fan over here too. By the way,
I have different for every platform. I have different buckets, and all it does is I have it set, and I set it because I think you can set it up to 50 times to repurpose that piece of content, and I set it up to just repurpose 50 times before it goes away, unless it's really like very like timely or something. But I probably have 250 clips in my buckets, and they're constantly rotating, which is really nice, because like Thanksgiving week, I didn't do any really repurposing from my shows because I wanted to spend time with family. But that content still went out, and it still tags the guest, and they actually reshare it, and then I get comments about it, and so it never stops. But I'm not working on it. So that's what I love about the queues and having it repost to those queues inside of Agora Pulse, and you can pause them if something happens and you don't want any social stuff to go out if there's some tragedy or something. But it's just super, super easy to do. I love Agora Pulse for that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Agora Pulse as well. I'm using it for more than just a couple of I've got all of our clients in that, so it's nice because it's like my main hub where we go. But I love being able to. Yep, you were on there.
I was gonna, the listening, the social listening, because it's easy now, because Facebook's horrible getting notifications, like and not being able and not missing somebody who asked a question or has a comment, and you could respond right inside of the Agora Pulse interface. It is just it's invaluable to what I do, because I don't know how I'd manage it without it.
Yeah, well, and I mean, even if you only have just a couple of profiles, the ease of knowing that you can go to one spot and get it all in one little dashboard is so nice. It's like, why would you want to like toggle between different ones? And the platforms keep changing things all the time. So different notifications that you used to get, you're not getting now. And it's hard to keep up. So I'm a big fan of that, just from a just time savings, brain cell savings standpoint. So Yeah.
And
Wow.
the other thing is I would say, like, let's, we do, Valley does podcasting. I do a lot of video podcasting. And you may not do that. So, okay, how can I repurpose some other content? Well, think about, we talked about being remarkable. Think about how, okay, maybe you have this blog post. Maybe there's sections out there you can read as you read a podcast. If you've got a bunch of blog content and you want to repurpose it, there's probably, you could do seasons of certain topics as a short form podcast. There's nothing wrong
Yeah.
with that. You could read that podcast and not show your face if you don't want to be on video. You could read that and make it an audiogram that points back to your blog. So there's
Right.
tons of different ways to repurpose all sorts of content. So when you hear us talk about video and how easy it is to repurpose, I mean, that's why I do it. I'm
Right.
lazy, and that's really easy to do. But don't think that you can't repurpose if you have like written content or just audio content or any of that stuff, because you can.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy because we've been talking about repurposing for years. It's
Mm-hmm.
something I've talked with people about as well. Um, and sometimes it started, before video was really like the hot thing. We were talking about blogs,
Yeah.
And there's so many ways you can repurpose and take one blog article and turn it into easily 20 to 50
Yeah.
tweets,
Yeah.
depending on how long the article is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of different nuggets that you could turn into short video clips, and when video started becoming more of a thing and we were starting with the blog, but then like, well, what do I do in front of the camera? Well, okay, start talking through some of the talking points on your blogs. Like we've
Mm-hmm.
already thought through the structure
Right.
of what's important to tell people. So it's really just, if you're going to take the time to create that long form content, use it as much as you can. I think it's super important.
Right. And I think
Now,
too, oh, go ahead.
I was going to ask about like from a standpoint of like Pinterest. Obviously, you've got that Pinterest
Mm-hmm.
emphasis and experience there.
Right.
I've heard a lot of people talk about how Pinterest is kind of like a search engine,
Yeah.
as well as kind of a social play.
Mm-hmm.
YouTube, it can often feel like, it's that search engine feel as far as
Right.
content goes. How much of that is an emphasis when you're thinking about repurposing content to be placing it strategically on platforms like that?
So I think like YouTube and probably Pinterest has the best organic still, you're not fighting the algorithm. You don't have to buy ads. I mean, they want you to buy ads, but it's not as
Sure.
bad as like Facebook and some of the other, and Instagram and some of those. um I still get a ton of traffic from Pinterest, and I still think that it's worth going there. They have changed some things. They're starting to be, they want you to stay on the platform. They're doing idea pins, which still can really help you with your engagement and get people to notice your product. They're actually allowing like affiliate links in there. They're also going to be, they just teased that next year they're going to actually add links to pins, like idea pins, in a different
Mm,
way. So there's going to be some really cool things that are happening over there. And it's a visual
yeah.
search engine. The thing is, there's no fake news over there. There's no, people
Mm,
go there to dream and get inspired and to search for things they're in a mind to buy. I'd say they're right behind Amazon on like intent to buy. When people go to Pinterest,
totally.
they don't mind stuff from brands. They actually like content from brands over on
Hmm.
Pinterest.
Yep.
So you've got a lot of things going for you if you're a small business or a business over on Pinterest. So a lot of people ignore it, and I don't know why, because it really is a great place. A lot of big brands, if you watch them, they've pulled a lot of their ad budget from like Twitter and Facebook and have moved it over to places like Pinterest and even TikTok. So um, but they're moving in the video realm too. And
Hmm.
what I was going to say is, I know a lot of people struggle with video, um, but you got to remember, you don't have to do YouTube perfect videos to be successful. Like, you look at
Right.
the stuff on TikTok, and it's just somebody holding up a camera most times. And uh, and I know it's hard, because I mean, it's a struggle. But look, if I don't know if this is a video podcast or not, but if you see my ugly mug on your screen, I can still sell things looking this way. There's no excuse for you not
Right.
to turn on your camera. So
Yeah.
because I'm kind of
A
scary
lot of
looking.
people just get over that insecurity. Most people are
Yeah.
not obsessing over you as much as you are that of yourself.
And I think that, I mean, I know brick and mortars, they struggle with this, but you're in front of customers anyway, talking to people.
Hmm.
Most brick and mortars are. If you're if you're a business, most of the time you have to get in front of people to sell.
Yeah.
So just try to do a mind shift and say, listen, I'm just doing it at scale. I'm just
Right.
selling at scale. And it is scary, but the more, I mean, I still get nervous every time I go live, but you just channel that into energy for the show, or for the video that you're doing. And it gets easier. It does. I
Yeah.
mean, I think I'll always get nervous, and I hope I always do, because I just think otherwise you get lazy. But I think more and more, that's just going to have to be one of those skills, like typing. If
Mhm.
if you know how to type, to run your computer, you're going to have to learn how to be on video to
Right.
continue working in business.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those things that we've been talking about for years, saying,
Mm-hmm.
you better get on this, you better get on this. And now it's like, no, if you're not on
Yeah,
this, you're missing the boat.
right. It was, remember,
So
I'm old enough that I remember it was that way with websites. Like people are
yeah.
like, oh, I don't need a website. And then it's like, yeah, now it's like, you're not a real business if you don't have a website, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So
Yep. It's funny. I know a few people that still claim that they don't need a website. I'm like,
they,
oh
they may
gosh.
be doing great business. Like there's some mechanics and people in town, like I'm sure they
Yeah.
don't have a website, but they would do better business if they had one. I mean, they would have more clients if
Yeah.
they would, even just a simple landing page, but I digress.
Yes. Nope. I've had that same thought, just the basic contact info and
Mm-hmm.
hours, and just I can't tell you. I mean, even just had to
Yeah.
take my dog into the vet the other day at the last minute, and I'm out searching for a vet because our main one wasn't open on a Monday. And so it's like,
Mhm.
well, people are always out searching for those
Yeah.
folks, and they go online first, you know?
And,
So
and I was so stoked, like my eye doctor. Um, it's all text. I made my appointment with text and all this stuff. And we're in like Longview, Texas. And I'm like, I came in, I'm like, you guys are amazing that I can do this stuff all online. You send me reminders versus text, and I can like, I said, what do I need to bring? Like, bring your insurance card and da, da, da. I said, can I just take a picture of it? Like, yeah, sure. And I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, in Longview, Texas, you guys are amazing. Like, I will
mhm.
never not go to anybody else because of that convenience.
They made it easy. That's the
Yeah.
same thing like with the chiropractor
Yeah.
that I go to. I was able to book the appointment on a Sunday when I was thinking about it. They had
Yes.
the online scheduling. I didn't have to wait till Monday to remember to call. Like, just
Yeah.
some of those things are just becoming more and more a big
Yes.
deal.
And
So
if you're not doing it, your competitors will, and you're gonna lose business. So,
yeah, yeah, man.
so
Well, you've given everyone already so much to think about, so much to go do. And a lot of it, I think, you're saying you're milking everything for
mhm.
every ounce you possibly can, but I think baby steps are a great place to start with this
Yeah.
repurposing as well. Just instead of going out and creating something from scratch this week, go look at what you've already made. What of it
Yes.
can you start doing something with, and build on
S-
from there?
So a workbook that I helped put together for that conference, one of the things I had them do is I said, okay, go and find your most popular content, not what you think is the best. Look at the data and find out what is working for you. Like for me, I was like, I always wanted to be a YouTuber, and I just thought that was cool.
Mm,
But my people resonated with me over on LinkedIn when I was doing live videos. So whatever, I thought LinkedIn was for nerds, but I love it now. I'm in there and I'm interacting with people. So find the data and look at it and find that content that's like 3 pieces that did really really well. Go there first and repurpose it, even if it's just like, hey, this is a section. Click to tweet it and it points back to your article. I mean, that's
yeah.
fine. Those 3 pieces of content. If you haven't created content yet and you need to do some, what are some of the lowest hanging fruit that you see that you think will resonate with people? Like, if you have a business and you get the same question more than twice,
Yeah.
that's a frequently asked question. Do a piece of content on that. Like,
Right.
and then you can send people who have that phone call, like, hey, I don't understand. You're like, hey, here's an article. Just go here. This will answer your question. I'm going to answer it to you right now. But this is for reference if you forget, or didn't take
Hmm.
notes or whatever. Go over here. So use some of those frequently asked questions that you think are stupid simple, but you still get a lot of questions about. Use that as your first piece of content, that lowest hanging fruit, and use
Yeah.
that, and then repurpose it as many times as you can.
Yeah. Well, and again, using a tool like Repurpose or similar,
Mhm.
that allows you the ability to do that in an
Right.
efficient way without having to think about, oh, I need to go on today and post something.
Hmm.
Where did I bookmark that somewhere?
Right.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
there's tools out there that can make your life a lot easier. So,
Exactly. Exactly.
um, well, if you have any parting words of advice as far as like, if people want to go get a quick win today, whether it's quick as in like, this is going to give me an absolute win right away, or it's helping them move towards a bigger win in their marketing strategy. What advice would you give someone if they want to move that needle forward?
I would start with the 3 pieces of like, think of if you're already putting out content, the 3 pieces of content, and write those down, and then just start moving through them. Like, you'll probably have some downtime in the holiday. You don't want to work too much, but maybe you could go and like just kind of look and start just writing some notes of, okay, this I'm going to try this piece because I think it might work because it did really, really well. And then if you're really just starting your content creation process, think of like that question that everybody asks you. Or if you're just brand spanking new, just kind of guess, what do you think that what people are going to ask you the most, like about your product or your business or your service? What's that question you think, like, even if it's like, what do you do again? Like Valerie was saying, like, what do you still do, this, write what you do, write kind of, like a signature story or a elevator pitch or something like that. And then think about how maybe 3 pieces out of that you can repurpose. The other thing I would give them is I just did a training for Ecamm, and I have if you're interested in live video and how, because I still think it's the best way for repurposing and how much content you get out of it. I did one for Ecamm and leap into video podcasting. If they go to socialmenewslive.com/leap, there is it's our actually template for we send out for guests. It's got our show flow, how we actually have the show, how it's put together. And I have 100 questions you can ask a interview. Like if you don't know where to start, like kind of to break the ice, I have 100 questions there that they can use for that. It's a swipe file, totally free, but they can go there and download that.
Love it. Love it. So many great resources. I'm like taking notes myself over here for things I want to go scope out too.
Yeah.
Well, and I will say, this is, we're recording this here in the holiday season. I will say, after being in business now for 10 years, the week between Christmas and New Year's tends to be a little slow. As you get closer to Christmas, things start slowing down. It's busy at the beginning of December, it's busy in January, but towards that last half of December, things definitely slow down. It's a great time to really think about your own business. And I've done a lot with like writing email blasts and getting things, a lot of that stuff you can schedule ahead, you can do the work now and schedule it ahead. You can write blog posts now, you can record video, you could record podcasts now. And maybe your industry is different. Maybe the holidays are just nutty for you. Maybe end of year is just crazy. A lot of nonprofits, that's the case. Certain retailers, that kind of thing. But there's other seasons of the year that are slow, where this is a safe time where I'm not getting pinged all the time. And you can mentally check out to focus on your own stuff. Sometimes batching that has been really helpful for me. So, along the lines of what Jeff just said, I will say, if you're listening to this around the holidays, like that's a good time to think through. And again, the holidays might not be your time, but think about when is. Right. So I also like to work on some of those bank holidays that a lot of people are out, and it's like
no one's bothering you. No one's bothering you. That's the thing. It's like, oh man, I have this day. No clients are going to call me. They're all out. You need to take time out. You need to give your brain a chance to kind of recover. Right. But there are some good days. And like, I kind of work when sometimes other people aren't. And then, I kind of, I know when the downtime is.
You time swap.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If you've got the flexibility to control when you work, swapping your time and working on a holiday, minor holiday or a weekend or an evening, sometimes is actually more beneficial if your brain is able to think creatively in that time, and knowing yourself well to know that that's something that works for you is really important.
And try to find something that brings you joy, creativity. Like if you you enjoy like creative writing or something, do that. And who knows what's going to come out of that. It's not wasted time if you're doing something like that. So just so give your brain a break, but also like creativity is like, I think like a muscle. The more you use it, the better you get at it. And stronger.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've actually found, like, this is kind of going down a rabbit hole a little bit, but little things like painting a wall.
Yeah.
Or weeding in the garden are
Right.
so important for me creatively, where I have the mental space to think about what content do I need to be creating? What content has worked well? What questions are popping up? Because a lot of times we move at breakneck pace. We don't slow down enough to think about it. But doing those mindless activities, I love doing.
And
So,
one of the things that on those mindless activities, so I've really started to kind of try to repurpose some of my hobbies. Like, so
mhm,
I go live now when I carve, and I just turn on the camera and I do it on Amazon, and people buy the knives or whatever. But it's a way for me not to do, I don't feel like I'm doing work, but I'm
yeah,
sharing with people and talking with people, and they love it. And so you could, like, if you're gardening, throw up a camera and like just, you could do Amazon stuff, or you could just be, something, you might get something out of it. You never know. So,
right.
kind of have that in your brain, like, okay, what am I learning from this gardening thing? Could I use this like an analogy in a blog post with, maybe I just snap a
Mhm,
few pictures of me gardening I can use later. I'm all about I mean, we need downtime where we don't think about anything, but on some of
totally.
this stuff, it's like, okay, I'll just snap some pictures of my garden because that tomato looks really good right now, and then I'll just start doing my gardening stuff. But you can repurpose that for an article or a image, but for a live video, whatever. And so, just try to think creatively, even your downtime or your hobbies, because you can mine a lot of content because everybody has hobbies. Everybody
Yeah.
wants to do something. So, anyway, that's what I've been discovering lately.
And back to what your earlier point was, like, a lot of things that a lot of people don't know, things
Hmm.
that you find interesting as a hobby
Right.
and you feel like is completely normal and boring. Other
Right.
people are like, oh, this is so interesting. I have to
Yeah.
see.
Like,
The wood carving. I've never carved wood in my life,
but they
you
like to
know,
watch it.
but
Right.
they like to watch it. I
Yeah.
have 21 chickens and they feel like,
That's huge.
old news to me, but
There's whole
people
blogs
would
on
probably
just chicken.
follow me doing my morning chores every
The
morning
chicken
to see
lady.
the
Let's watch it.
chickens.
Yeah.
So, it's, tap into what people are resonating with, even with your personal content. That might give you some clues as to where you can
Yeah.
leverage it on your brand's content.
So for example, so I cooked the turkey this Thanksgiving. We just had Thanksgiving for you guys listening later. Um, and I read this thing because I was all freaked out because we had all these people coming. Like, my breast is going to be too dry. Well, I found this hack online where when you rest the turkey, you turn it upside down so the juices drain into the breast.
Ah,
And I'm like, I didn't know that. That is amazing. And it worked. And so
yeah.
you could take that and turn it into the first part of a blog post about,
Mm-hmm.
learning new things, or,
Mm-hmm.
what, I mean, all sorts of stuff. So, and that resonates with people because everybody cooks a turkey on Thanksgiving. And so you get into their world, they're into yours. And so that was just me, searching, but that's great content that I'm going to mine later and repurpose it as a story or as a hack or something
Right.
because it works
Something.
so well. Yeah. So, I mean, always be looking for that. And the
Always
problem
be
is
looking for stories.
and you've got to have a system that, and I know Valerie's big in systems, but you have to have a system where you can categorize that and tag it and put it so you do not forget it. That's the
Right.
biggest thing for being creative, is like, don't lose the things that you wake up in the middle of the night. You got to write them down, or if you have these things, write them down, post them somewhere, and being able to retrieve them later for a rainy day when you're not being so creative.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, and that's the whole thought around systems is
Yeah.
you might be crazy busy today, but you get this moment of inspiration from listening to this conversation with Jeff, and you're like, well, I can't do anything with it today. You
Right.
need to have a system to what are you going to do with these ideas later? So that would be my challenge to anyone who's listening here is, do you have your system in place to take what you've learned today from Jeff and put it into practice? So Jeff, thanks so much for
Yeah.
coming on. This was great. I'm inspired to go do more with my own live
Awesome.
video. We'll
My
see if
work here
I
is
we'll see
done.
if I get that accomplished, But it is the holiday season where things slow down a little bit. So maybe,
Mhm.
maybe. But Jeff, if people want to get more from you, they want to check out more, they've been inspired,
Mhm.
where should we point people to?
I'm everywhere on the interwebs at Jeff C, and it's spelled S as in Sam, IEH. That's I before E, especially in C. That's how my mom taught me. And socialmedianewslive.com. That's where the Friday show lives. We're everywhere if you search for Social Media News Live. But we'd love for you to join us on Fridays or listen to the podcast or watch the live videos over on YouTube. But yeah, we would love to connect with you over there. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Jeff. And until next time, we'll all be out repurposing everything that's happening in our daily lives.
That's right. Thanks, Valerie.
If you liked what you just heard, please hit subscribe to make sure you don't miss any of our future episodes. And while you're at it, go ahead and leave us a review. That not only helps us out, but it helps others discover great interviews just like this one.